Good morning everyone, welcome back to my garden. Janie here, and today is another video in my Gardening for Beginners series, and today I'm going to talk all about my irrigation. So I am not an expert on irrigation. I had no idea what I was doing when I first started out, and it was really confusing for me. Most of the terms and the little pieces, it's like gibberish. It's like a different language. So my goal for this video is just to kind of translate that as much as I can and as much as I've learned for you guys. So basically think of this as layman's terms, drip irrigation. So I live in Northern California, Zone 9B, and it's very dry here. So we have to rely on drip irrigation and sprinklers for our lawns. Otherwise, everything would die. It's just too hot in the summers and it's just too dry. We just don't get enough rain. So this irrigation is really important for us, and we cannot hand water. We can't water with a hose. We have to really use this in this climate because you just can't keep up with all the watering that needs to get done otherwise. So I'm starting out right now on the side of my house in my pot area, my messy pot area, because I wanted to show you guys my control valve setup. And it's probably a setup that a lot of you guys have, and a lot of you guys kind of just walk by and don't pay attention to. And I say that because that's what I did all the time. I just didn't pay attention to it. I thought, oh, that's for the sprinklers. I'll just leave it. I just won't touch it. And I think it's pretty important to know what it does and what you can do with it, what the options you have. So let me show you. Okay, so I'm back here in my pot storage area, my messy pot storage area, and you can see right here, this is my whole irrigation valve system. And like I said, you guys have probably seen this on the side of your house somewhere, or something that looks similar to this. And I always just walked by it and just ignored it. But once I really started to figure out what these things were, it made this whole irrigation thing a lot more understandable for me. So each one of these tall things are control valves, and you can see there's a bunch of wires to them, and the wires connect either wired or wirelessly to your irrigation controller system. And I'll show you mine in just a little bit. Right off to the right here, this green thing, this is my isolation valve. And so basically what that's for, if you have a leak or you have to turn off the water for some reason, I would open that and I would turn it, and that would turn off the whole system. So it's pretty important to know where your isolation valve is, just in case. So actually we have two more of these control valves underneath the ground right here. I know that's kind of funny, but we had a irrigation contractor come in and add two more zones for us because I added hydrangeas into my backyard, and I wanted those to be watered every day where everything else could just be watered every other day. And so we needed two more zones. So basically I have 6 drip irrigation zones that I use, and then these 2 are for the sprinklers, the front yard sprinklers and the backyard sprinklers. And basically underneath here, this connects to the 3/4 inch tubing, and then that 3/4 inch tubing goes to different parts of the yard and waters different parts of the yard. So your irrigation system is wired to one of these. When it's time to turn it on, it'll turn it on. It'll allow the water to go through and go to whatever zone you have set it to, and then the irrigation system will turn it off when it's time to turn it off. So hopefully that's a good background for you guys to understand what these crazy things are. These things that are sticking out, those are like filters and backflow preventers to make sure that the water doesn't get back into the system. It's just a bunch of stuff that you do have to have. And Jason and I looked into adding the extra zones ourselves, and it is something that can be done, but then we just decided it wasn't worth it and we wanted it to be done the correct way. And so we hired the irrigation contractor to come, and like I said, it was only a couple $100. We know it was done right. And so sometimes you just have to know when you have to hire it out. So if we go out my front gate and we go into my front yard, I'm going to show you guys my plumbago bed, which is a perfect example of our drip irrigation system. because we're taking all the rocks out, which is very exciting. So Jason posted, I'll go slower, sorry guys. Jason posted on Craigslist free landscape rocks. We had landscape rocks covering this whole area, and people have been coming all week and just taking some landscape rocks. So we just have a little bit more that we have to get rid of, and then we'll get some mulch and put some mulch over. So you can see right here, this goes underneath the fence and then over to my control valves, and then it pops up here, and you can see the 3/4 inch tubing goes all along this way. And so when this zone turns on, water comes to this this tubing right here to water this area. So then if we look even a little bit closer, we have the 3/4 inch tubing, which is the big tubing, and you want to have bigger tubes to carry water further, because there's only a certain distance that these tubes can take the water until the pressure gets so low that the water won't go through. So by having the bigger tubes to take the water longer distances, you're able to go further. And then you connect with a 1/4 inch tube right there, and then that way you can get to each individual plant like that. And that's my plumbago that I cut back, and you can see it's doing fine, doing well. So that's the basics of irrigation, kind of how it goes. When we moved into a house, this system, this right here, was already here because this plumbago bed was already here, and there was irrigation to, you know, a couple of the plants in the front yard and everything like that, and I basically just added to it. I tapped into this tubing, and then I took the 1/4 inch tubing to whatever new plants that I planted, and that is how I water all of my plants. So here's another example here. The 3/4 inch tubing is up there, and it's covered, and then there's 1/4 inch tubing coming off of that, and then I tapped into it to get to a plant here that I've actually taken out. But right here I've planted a tulip, and you can see there's a tulip shoot coming out, which is exciting. And so here, these things are called emitters, and you can have emitters of different levels or strengths, and that's basically how much water is going to come out at a certain time. And so there's 1/2 gallon per hour, 1 gallon per hour, and 2 gallon per hour. And basically you decide how much water a plant is going to need. Like a hydrangea is going to need a ton of water, so you're going to want to do 2 gallon per hour emitters, whereas something like a Shasta daisy isn't going to need as much, so you can do a 1/2 gallon per hour emitter. So that's one way to do the irrigation tubing. Let me show you another way. Okay, so I was just sitting right over there to show you guys. Now I'm going to show you guys my annual swoop border. There's just far too many plants in this border to have that 1-to-1 irrigation emitters. You guys can see all my daffodil shoots coming up, but you can see I have this tubing, and this is called inline tubing, and basically it has an emitter inside the tubing, and you can connect this to the 1/4 inch black tubing that I showed you before, and it basically just allows you to have many emitters, you know, without having so many of those drip emitters, because they're all inside the tubing anyway. And this is what I use for my cut flower garden, just because I have so many plants in my cut flower garden as well. So it's kind of up to you which one you want to use, whether you want to use the inline tubing or whether you want to use the regular tubing with the specific emitters. Obviously, if you use the specific emitters, that's going to save water because you're directing the plants to one specific spot. But if you have so many plants in one area, you might want to use the inline, and I use a combination of both. Okay, so basically, having shown you guys all of that, the things that you have to remember is you have your control valve on the side of your house, and then from that control valve is a pipe or tube that takes the water a longer distance to your zone, and then from that big tube, there's usually smaller tubes, which are 1/4 inch tubes, that take it directly to the plant that you want watered. So that's the basic gist of it. That's kind of what you guys have to think of. And then you have to think of what is controlling those control valves. Where are those wires connected to? And for us, we had this really old system when we moved in here, and you had run back into the garage to change everything. Anytime you wanted to turn on any type of zone or check anything, you had to run in here. And I found myself asking Jason to do it all the time because it was so archaic and confusing. And so one of the things that we splurged on, and I say it's a splurge, it wasn't that bad and it was worth every penny, is this ratio system. Can you see it right there? So let me show you guys. Okay, so here it is behind our Christmas tree. But you can see that little system right there with the blue light is just this fantastic wireless, it's called a smart irrigation system. And let me show you guys on my phone how we can use it. So pulling up the Ratio app on my phone, first screen that it's going to come to is it's going to come to a little calendar on the top, and then basically what's next. And if you guys go to zones, you can see all my different zones that I have, and like I said, I have 6, and then it will show you what you've used in the past couple weeks. If I hit that quick run zone and I set it for 3 minutes, that's how I check if my irrigation is working well, if I set things up right, if there's a problem. I can be out in the garden, get my phone out of my pocket, and then just hit quick run. It's so fantastic. I really love it. So if you go over to the calendar section, that's where you see the next planned time something's going to run. And obviously in the winter time, it's going to be less frequent than in the summer. And then you can just click on it and change how often you want it to run. So you can use the smart settings and have the controller try and figure it out yourself, or you can fix it yourself. And I tend to like to fix it myself, but I do use the rain skip. So if it's going to rain, it will cross out one of those irrigation systems. So it's a really fantastic system. So the Ratio system has just become invaluable for me, because basically if I'm working in the garden and I want to see if I've connected it correctly, or if it's getting to the plant that I wanted to make sure, or if I see something's wrong with the plant and I suspect that it might be the watering, all I have to do is go on my phone, do a quick run, and I can check it really, really fast. So it's completely worth it. I think it's so fantastic. I feel like it's the way it should be. It's the way these drip systems should work and these controllers should work. So I really, really think that it's worth every penny. So I wanted to show you guys, after, if you are newbies and you have a system set up because you moved into your house and you know it's just going to some shrubs or something like that, how you add to it. That's something that, you know, it's really intimidating to start off with. You go into that aisle in Home Depot or Lowe's and it's gibberish. It's just a different language. You have no idea what you're looking at. So I wanted to show you guys this bucket. I got another one at Home Depot just so that I could show you guys what it is. But basically this is in the drip irrigation aisle of Home Depot, and it's a drip repair and expansion kit. And basically it has all the stuff that you need, all the emitters, all the connectors, all the tubing that you need. It has basically everything you need to add to the drip system that you currently have. And it's all in this really great bucket that I still use, my bucket that I have. These days I have progressed past this and I have my own little kit that I use with my own stuff. But this is such a fantastic starter kit to have. And then it just helps you. Every time you add a new plant, you just go, you grab this bucket, you can tap into that system that you already have, and it just makes things so much easier. So if you guys are newbies to gardening and you know, this is the Gardening for Beginners series, so probably most of you are, but if you guys are newbies, I would recommend going and picking up something like this and just having it. And then once you start running out of the emitters or running out of the 4-way connectors or anything like that, you go back to the same aisle and you get the specific things you need, and then you can either refill this or you can do what I did and get a whole new system. But by then you'll be more comfortable with the whole process of drip irrigation, and you'll kind of understand everything, and you know, you'll just be that much more comfortable with it. So I definitely recommend the Ratio, and I definitely recommend this. So one more thing I want to tell you guys is I just can't tell you how good it feels to go to a place like Home Depot or Lowe's and walk into that drip irrigation aisle, you know, along with all the other landscapers or whoever's there, and know exactly what you're looking for, know exactly what you need, feel confident that you understand everything. It feels really good. I can't tell you guys how many times I've gone to Home Depot and just felt lost there and not known what to do. And then as soon as I feel like I finally got a grasp and a good handle on what I need, what I'm looking for, all that kind of stuff, it's just another boost of confidence. So I really think that this is doable. This is something that you guys can figure out. I figured it out, you know, so I know you guys can figure it out. You just start slow. Think about, you know, what it is. It is a tube going from a control valve to the plant, and how are you going to get the water there and the appropriate amount of water. So again, I really suggest getting that Rainbird bucket to start off with, going slow, doing one plant at a time, and you'll get it. So I hope this video was really helpful for you guys. I hope you're enjoying these Gardening for Beginners series. Again, this is something that when I was starting out, I wish I had a series like this that would take me through with all these really simple terms so that I could understand it, and I didn't have to Google and look up every single little term that somebody was talking about in a video or an article or something like that. So I will link a playlist at the end of the rest of my Gardening for Beginners series, so you guys can take a look at those videos if you want. If you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It would help me out, and I will see you in another video very soon.